Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. All right, we're continuing our monthly Director Spotlight series, Taste of Directors series, where we'll take a specific director for each month and we'll turn the spotlight on that director, and we'll talk a little bit about that director's background and how they got into the world of filmmaking. We'll talk about 3 to 4 films in that director's filmography, all to give you a taste for what that director has contributed to the world of cinema. Now, as I said many times before in previous installments, choosing just a few films from a filmmaker's filmography isn't going to give you the full depth and breadth of that filmmaker's work, especially if they've been doing this for multiple decades. If they've been making films for 30 or 40 years, 3 or 4 films is just going to scratch the surface of what they've done. But the purpose is to just give you a taste of what they have done and contributed to the world of cinema, to kind of whet your appetite, so that if maybe you haven't seen any films from this director, this might inspire you to dive a little bit deeper into that director's work. My God, and Shiloh, my dog, has crashed the party here. I knew I heard you. What are you doing, man? Let me put him up real quick, or hold on, I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that little interruption there. I had to put Shiloh up in his little cage over there. I'm gonna feed him in a little bit here, but so sorry for that interruption. But yeah, anyway, he's like, I think about 12 weeks old, Black German Shepherd. So we got him the night of Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. So yeah, we're still working to train him. But anyway, today's entry is on Taste of Gordon Parks films. So I'm really excited about this entry. Wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the works of Gordon Parks. And to be honest with you, I am still exploring the great works of this amazing photojournalist and director. And I've barely scratched the surface of this man's work. So I really look forward to hearing in the comment section what your thoughts are on Gordon Parks, his films, his photography, which is inspiring to me because, you know, I'm interested in photography as well. I'm actually shooting this video and shoot most of my videos on my Sony a7 IV here, which again, I barely scratched the surface of how to use it. So I'm really not that great a photographer, but seeing Gordon Parks' works definitely inspires me in the world of photography and filmmaking. So let's spend a few minutes talking about Gordon Parks. So anyway, let's share a little bit about the background of Gordon Parks. Gordon Roger Alexander Buchanan Parks. He was born in November of 1912. He was an American photojournalist, composer, author, poet, and film director. He was the youngest of 15 children. He was born to Andrew Jackson Parks and Sarah Ross in November 1912 in Fort Scott, Kansas. That's basically where he grew up. He attended a segregated elementary school. His high school had both black students and white students because the town was too small to segregate the high school. So he grew up in Kansas, and you know, you can read the details in Wikipedia or online, but to make us... Could you try again? Now I got Siri interrupting me, but anyway, I apologize. So he grew up in Fort Scott, Kansas, and he had a pretty rough background, to be honest. I mean, and you can look it up on the internet, but he had a very rough upbringing in terms of, I think his parents died at a young age. He went to live with one of his older sisters, and that didn't work out very well with her husband. And so he got turned out on the streets at the age of 15 years old and had to fend for himself and make it on his own at a very young age. And then later on, he would get interested into photography. He, of course, taught himself photography, so he didn't go to school professionally for it. And he taught himself the trade. And in the 1940s through the 1970s, he was very well known for capturing and chronicling the civil rights movement through photography and just capturing the lives of African Americans and people during that period of time in the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s. He was prominent in Life magazine in his photography. And then he would later get into directing films. And his first feature film that he directed, I'll talk about 2 of his films here. The first being The Learning Tree from 1969. This film is a piece of history because this is the first major American studio film to be directed by an African American. And that was Gordon Parks. So Gordon Parks directed this film, made history as the first African American director to direct a major American studio film. and that's The Learning Tree. And this is an amazing film. It's basically about life in Kansas in the 1920s as a young person here, Newt Winger, played by Kyle Johnson, growing up in Kansas in the 1920s and just the challenges of being a young black man growing up during that time. It was not easy, and it's somewhat semi-autobiographical. There are allusions to Gordon Parks' own life growing up in Kansas during this time. So the main lead here, Kyle Johnson, was played Newt Winger. He is the son of Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura in Star Trek. So that's a pretty notable thing. But this was the last edition to come out from Criterion in 2021, along with One Night in Miami. Came out in December of 2021. And this is a wonderful edition. I have a review of The Learning Tree on my channel, so definitely check out my review of The Learning Tree. It is a fantastic film from Gordon Parks. Came out in 1969. It is Spine 1107, and it is highly recommended. Check out that review. A few years later, he would then go on to direct this amazing film that came out on 4K Ultra HD in 2022. And I was so excited when Criterion, back in, I think, March of last year, they announced that Shaft would be coming out on 4K Ultra HD in June of last year. And man, I tell you what, this is my favorite release from Criterion of last year. This 4K Ultra HD release of Shaft, my top favorite of the year. I love this release. It's an amazing release. You learn so much about Gordon Parks in this. You learn a lot about Isaac Hayes, who composed the incredible score to this. You learn a lot about Gordon Parks being a bit of a Renaissance man, that he was not only a photographer, he was not only a director, but he was heavily involved in the writing of this film and in influencing the composition of that score, working with Isaac Hayes. And of course, he also wrote, directed, and produced and composed The Learning Tree. So he composed the music for this film that he did. And he was highly influential in several aspects of this film in addition to directing it. So Shaft, incredible edition. This edition includes the first Shaft film. Of course, Shaft is played by Richard Roundtree. He's a New York City private investigator, and, he's into the ladies and all that stuff, and, quite a character. But this set includes Shaft and Shaft's Big Score, the first sequel to Shaft, which were both directed by Gordon Parks. The third film in the Shaft series, Shaft in Africa, was directed by a different director, John Galernan. And so I think that might be the reason why Shaft in Africa is not included in here. I'm not sure. It could be some other licensing reason. But this edition includes the first Shaft and Shaft's Big Score, both of which were directed by Gordon Parks. And this is a landmark film in the history of cinema. It's part of that, blaxploitation, era of films. But this is such an amazing film with an iconic soundtrack by Isaac Hayes, and Gordon Parks was the director of that film. Now, I wanted to talk about those two films, The Learning Tree and Shaft, as part of this taste of Gordon Parks films. But in terms of like the third and fourth film, I really wanted to focus instead on Gordon Parks as a photojournalist, because I think that is such a huge part of his career. It really was the biggest part of his career, from what I understand, even more so than the filmmaking itself. And he was such a visionary storyteller with his camera. I mean, he told stories and essentially used his camera, showed how you can use a camera as a weapon, so to speak. And the documentary on HBO that I'll talk about here in a second is a great example of that. I mean, he really was prolific when it comes to the area of photography and capturing certain moments and just chronicling the lives of African Americans during the 40s, 50s, and 60s, through a lot of the civil rights movement, through a lot of, racial discrimination that was going on during that time. His camera captured a lot of powerful images that are, a big part of the National Registry. There is an amazing documentary that's on HBO, and I'm going to show some of this trailer right here. It's called A Choice of Weapons, inspired by Gordon Parks. The official trailer is linked in the description to this video, and I'm going to show a little bit of that trailer here. I've got it up on my iPad, and I'm going to press play here and show you a little bit of this trailer. Let's go.
Photography was a way in which I could express my own feelings. I might have turned to the gun or the knife, but by then I had chosen the camera.
Gordon Parks's photography demanded that America look at itself.
With all that Black people were confronting, it requires a great deal of temerity to say that you're going to change that with your camera.
I wanted to really pursue art, so what I've been doing is taking a page out of Gordon Parks' book. That's when I started realizing how important my imagery was to my city.
Gordon Parks showed me it's important to create this visual narrative of institutional racism and convey that to a viewer.
I use the camera to build people up and let people feel special.
I think you guys are gonna be famous.
I owe a lot of where I'm at right now to Gordon. Gordon was that pathfinder.
You're not going to get the great photograph if you don't establish trust.
He absolutely sparked an interest in going places and telling stories. I wouldn't be a reporter today if it wasn't for Gordon Parks.
Yeah, so that was Anderson Cooper there. You know, of course, he's been highly influential to a lot of people. You saw a number of filmmakers talking about him, Spike Lee. If you'll continue with the trailer, you'll see Ava DuVernay and other filmmaking voices talking about Gordon Parks and just his incredible work as a photographer and how powerful those images were. And it sort of relates to what we're talking about in Taste of Directors, in that, you know, when you look at movies, movies are really a series of photographs. They're a series of still images that tell a story. In much the same way, Gordon Parks, through his work as a photojournalist, took amazing, powerful images that stitched together tell an amazing story of, you know, of life in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s of African Americans and other people during that period of time. And, you know, of course, his works are highly chronicled in Life magazine as well. So I wanted to just talk about his work as a photojournalist and the impact that he's had. Definitely check out that documentary on HBO. And it is a fantastic documentary indeed. And also check out these two films, The Learning Tree and Shaft, both amazing additions from Criterion, amazing films. I recommend both of them highly. I've done reviews of both of these on this channel, so check them out. And they're just great works from Gordon Parks. All right, so let me know in the comments section below, what are some of your favorite films from Gordon Parks? What are some of your favorite photographic images that he has captured over that multi-decade period from the 1940s through, I think, into the 1970s? What are some of your favorite or most impactful photographic moments that you've seen from Gordon Parks in the photojournalistic work he did? And what are some of your favorite films from Gordon Parks? Let me know all that in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace.